Hey everybody, here's me once again, Victor, with a new guest, new place, new day. And today I'm really happy to be in the presence of Kris Hawkins. That's Kris with a K. He wants you all to know.
Yes, don't
not
forget
CH,
that.
not it's a K.
Mm-hmm.
And he's I had classes with him in my first quarter at MI. And so he was my first teacher. And I'm so happy to be this is my last week in LA, so to be in his presence, it's like closing a cycle. Full circle. And I'm so happy. Kris, thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna read a little bit about him, but as you know, then he's gonna tell his story. So Kris Hawkins is an Emmy-winning, not Grammy, Emmy-winning music producer, studio guitarist, and award-winning educator living in Los Angeles. Kris began his professional career as a guitarist over 2 decades ago in Florida, eventually making the move to Los Angeles in the early 2000s. Upon arrival, Kris immediately became an on-demand session musician for the likes of Enrique Iglesias, Christina Aguilera, Dr. Dre, Dr. Luke, Cathy Dennis, and many more. After his successful tenure as a session musician, Kris shifted his focus to the production side of music, finding, developing, and pitching songs and artists for labels such as Sony, Universal Music Group, Hollywood Records, and Interscope Records. There's more stuff here, but I think that's more than enough for you to know that Kris is the deal, the real deal.
Sometimes.
Again, Kris, thank you very much, and please, won't you tell me more about your beginnings in Florida and how you came to LA and all that?
Okay. Well, so like everybody else, I picked up a guitar when I was 13. Mm-hmm. And fell in love with it. Became obsessed with it. Practiced many hours, and then by the time I was 15, I started doing my first gigs, where my mom would have to take me to the gig, and then it would sneak me in. And
because you couldn't be.
Because I wasn't allowed to be in the club, but I was playing with these bands when I was like 15, and I did that up until, and I did that a lot. I just played gigs and around Florida, and kind of hit the apex of what I could do there, I think, when I was around 19 or 20. So like 21, I just was like, well, I could either stay here and keep doing this or try something else. Yeah. And so I thought about it, and I was like, well, there's 3 places to go. There's New York, there's Nashville, or there's LA. And I was like, New York's cold. Don't like the cold. Nashville is just completely full of ridiculous musicians, so that'd be much harder for me there. And I was like, well, LA seems nice. And I've been there before, and so came out here, and I didn't know anybody when I moved out here. So what I did was I signed up for school at MI. Mm-hmm. I went to GIT, but it was funny because I went in for my placements, and because I had gone to college for guitar and stuff, and so I could read and I could do all that stuff. Mm-hmm. I placed out of the guitar program in my first day.
So that means that he took all the tests, and
I passed all the tests for the whole
graduated
curriculum.
without even doing the program.
Yeah, pretty much. So they were like, well, why are you here? I'm like, oh, I'm just here to meet people and do stuff. And so I took some classes with some of the teachers there that I wanted to meet. But that was kind of how I networked with some of the teachers, and they saw that I was good, and then that's how I got my first few gigs in LA, kind of filling in for them, and then those turned into more gigs, and then on one of those particular gigs, I was in LA for about 6 months. I was on one of the gigs, and I had this girl walk up to me on a break and be like, oh, my friend wants to meet you. And I'm like, yeah, great. Cool, right, yeah, awesome. And so she brings me over to this table, and there's this guy sitting there, and he's got this big chain around his neck. He's like, yo, man, you're one of the best guitar players I ever seen. And he's like, you got to come by my studio. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm like, yeah, great. But then I go home, and I look up who this guy was, and he was a very, very famous music producer. And I was like, oh, shit, I should probably go. Can I curse?
You can curse.
Okay, you're gonna beat me out or something.
No.
So
uncensored.
So essentially, I looked up who the guy was, and I went over there, and I did my first session with him. It was for an Enrique Iglesias track, and I was like, and I got paid $1,000 cash, and I was like, it was in this $1 million studio. There were Ferraris and Bentleys in the parking lot. And I was like, I made it.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey mom, I made it. I did it. In 6 months, I'm here. and I started working with this guy, and working on for about a month. I was going over there every day, and I was getting paid the same. So I was making really good money. Like I made like 30 G's that first month I worked for him. I was like, whoa, playing guitar. It's like on records, on real records. I was like, oh my god. And then the producer comes to me after that, and he's just like, hey man, I can't keep paying you this kind of money, but I want you to be part of my team, be one of the writers, and I'm like, I think that sounds good. Yeah, that that's where the real money is royalties, and I've heard about this, right? Mm-hmm. So for the next 4 years, I worked for this guy, 7 days a week, 16 hours a day. I did nothing but eat, sleep, and breathe that studio, and towards the end of my time with him, I was noticing that
cats are playing here.
My cats are playing. Yeah, it's fine. I noticed that I was starting to hear things like on the radio, and I'm like, but I had worked on so many tracks, I had lost track, no pun intended, of like what we'd done, and I didn't know what happened to the tracks after we kind of made them. I didn't know how they.
Do you even remember you played on that?
Yeah, it's just like it was just so much stuff. It was just like I was like, it sounds like me. Is that me? I can't tell. I'm not sure. Maybe that is. Maybe that isn't. But then, like, when I'd ask the producer about these songs, he'd be like, oh, yeah, man, did you write on that? And I'm like, yeah, I'm the only guy here that plays an instrument. So, yeah, I think that's me. And it just ended up being a thing where I was naive to the way the business operated. I was naive to things like copyright and PROs and publishing and licensing and how to protect your work and splits and all those things. And I just didn't know. I was just here to play guitar, man.
Just
thinking
having fun, yeah.
Yeah, thinking that people will. You're coming from a place where your word is your bond, kind of thing. Like thinking like, oh well, they'll take care of me. Everything will be fine. But this started happening more and more often, and I realized something was kind of off, and I realized that he was not giving my writing credits on things. He was not even giving my guitar playing credits on certain things too. He was taking them instead.
Yeah, not even your name. Right?
Yeah, not even my name and stuff. So it was just kind of like, this doesn't seem cool.
Yeah.
And so I ended up leaving that situation, and then I was like, well, what can I do? Like, well, I guess I can hire a lawyer, and I'll talk to the lawyer. And I talked to and the good thing about working with him is now granted, like that part sucked, but the best part was I learned how to make a record, like really make a record, which I didn't know before. I learned the process, and I met a ton of people while I was there. And one of the people I met was this head of legal at Capitol Records at the time, and I was able to call her and go and sit and have lunch with her, and I kind of told her, I'm like, hey, I think this is happening, and they're not giving me, and she was just like, well, it's like, I could tell you, that this isn't the first time I've heard a story like this. Someone new comes into town, they're very talented, they get used and exploited. And I'm like, well, what can I do? And she's like, well, you have two options, And I'm like, okay, well, what are my options? And she goes, well, you can sue him. I'm like,
great.
Yeah, do it, right? She goes, but here's the problem. She goes, A, he's a multimillionaire. You can barely pay your rent for your little Hollywood studio apartment you live in. They'll bury you in legal fees before you even get into any kind of litigation or anything. I was like, oh. She's like, but let's say that you do and that you actually get your stuff back. The other problem that's going to happen is now you're the guy that sues. And no one wants to work with the guy that sues, even if you're right. I was like, well, okay, that all sucks. Well, what's option number 2? She goes, take it as a really expensive lesson. And that's what I ended up doing. It's like I kind of had to swallow that pill, and it sucked. And I almost quit and left LA because of it, because it was just like I spent all this time and all this work, and it was just like I just got completely screwed over. But I was like, I'm stubborn, and I was like, you know what? No, I'm gonna make sure that I understand what I missed and how. And I spent a lot of time just kind of, all the not sexy stuff about the music business, like understanding how copyright and writing and all that licensing and all those things kind of work. That way, next time I was in that kind of situation, I knew how to cover my ass, so to speak, and make sure that I got what was mine. And that was kind of it. But from that, then it's like, I stuck with it. And then once I learned how to kind of control my creative output and what I contributed and started looking at what I did with a lot more value, like I am a valuable kind of entity, and people should be paying me and be, and I should be getting compensated for the things that I bring to the table. that's when things really kind of turned around for me. You know, when I started drawing a line and started saying no to certain things and turning things down, and from then, you know, I went on and, you know, produced and developed a lot of artists for, you know, I was kind of like the minor leagues for some startup artists, you know, where like they'd send them to me and I'd work with them and I'd report back and like, you know, they're
prepare them for
get them for the next stage, and, you know, whether they were capable of going to the next stage. Would do a lot of that, and then just did a lot of writing and, you know, some producing for indie labels and things like that, and then moved more over into doing film and TV library stuff, like you know, basically just making music for a library catalog that people can kind of go into, and we need an acoustic guitar sunset kind of thing. And they type in the metadata, and like, you know, and then there's 100 tracks that pop up with acoustic guitar sunset, you know.
Like thousands.
So and then they go through them, and then hopefully they pick mine, you know, and they get paid for it. So that's kind of what I've been doing more and more in recent years, is just doing the library stuff. But,
and from that story that, like, I remember when I heard that for the first time, really struck me as this guy learned a lot from this awful experience, and he's now teaching us so we don't go to that same thing and nearly as bad.
Well, no, and that was the thing, is like I tell everybody that they're going to have their own mistakes and your own pitfalls, but hopefully it won't be as big as mine, because I came in blind. I mean, I just came in as a, and this is my thing. Like when I first started teaching at MI, did I tell you about how the class came about? Even, no. So they had me teaching studio etiquette, right? And I was just kind of like, well, I mean, shut up, wrap the cables, do what you're told. There you go. Studio etiquette. Ta-da. You know, I can tell you that in 5 minutes. But what I started doing and noticing was, like, I would, you know, I'd be like, hey, you know, how many of you guys are writing your own music? And all the hands would go up. I'm like, how many of you guys are signing up for the PRO? What's that? I was like, oh crap. You know, I realized that there was this gap in knowledge. Like, even me going to, like, you know, college for, like, you know, jazz performance and music composition, never once in my entire educational journey as a musician did anyone tell me about how to do my taxes, how to set up a small business, how to work as a musician. It was always like prepping me to, like, go be a teacher of music, as opposed to actually operate, or like copyright, PRO, publishing, licensing.
The non-sexy part.
Yeah, they're not sexy things, but, you know, I play all the scales, but I don't know how to, like, whether I fucking charge someone for a session. I don't know, you know, and, like, nobody talked about that. So realizing, like, when I was talking to students when I first started teaching MI, you know, that kind of thing, like, wow, they have the gap in knowledge that I had too. So I started kind of shifting the studio etiquette class into, like, more like, this is ASCAP, and this is BMI, and this is how you register a song, and this is how you do this is what copyright is, and this is how you protect your work. And it was funny because it got back to the boss, you know, of the department, and studio etiquette was always kind of the, like, least favorite class, but it became, like, the most favorite class. He's like, what are you teaching in that class? I was like, oh crap, I'm totally gonna get fired. You know. And I told him, and he's like, oh man, you need to make that into a class. So, you know, I turned that into the business class that you ended up taking.
Because the class that he gave to me was business of audio. The very first class I had.
Yeah, well, and I mean, and people come into it thinking, like, oh god, business, but I try to make it so it's like, no, this is all about learning those things. I mean, we don't talk about, you know, technical stuff, but we talk about, like, mental stuff, and, you know, how to deal with people and clients and things, and then things are going to go sideways. Things will always go sideways, but it's like, how do you recover, you know? And, like, how do you will not get paid for a gig that you do, and how do you deal with that? And, like, you know, I mean, all these things are going to happen to you. I mean, and it's just how we learn to protect ourselves, and then, you know, facilitate, like, a sustainable career doing this stuff. And that's what that class ended up being, was just, how do I help you guys learn from my mistakes, you know, because I learned from them, and nobody can fuck with me now, you know. And I want it so you guys get kind of bulletproof too, so you know how to handle your business, be cool, you know, and get the job done, and also get compensated for what you're worth. You know, and looking at what we do is a valuable thing, because, again, day one, you know, I start off with never do anything for free unless you want to.
That's the first thing.
That's the first thing I tell you. And the whole point of that is that yes, you're going to have to do gigs for experience and you're going to have to do gigs for exposure, but you do them on your own terms. You never let anybody make you feel like just because it's music and you should feel happy that someone's asking you to do it, that you should do it. No, you should do shit because it looks like something you should be doing, and it's your choice, nobody else's. Yeah. So that way when it fucks up and goes bad, it's on you, and you can't blame anybody else because you made the decision to do it. But also like asserting value on what we do. Like yes, it's our passion and we love it and it's the best thing ever, but it's also a job. And when you spend X amount of money on educating yourself to learn how to do a particular craft, like why on earth would you go out and do it for free? Like if you went to electrician school to learn how to rewire the electricity in a house, and someone came out and it was your first electrician job, and they're like, well, it's your first job, so we're not going to pay you, even though you... Fuck that. No. Yeah. No. It's creative stuff is the only industry that expects us to do shit like that for free because it's our passion. Yeah, it's my passion, but it's also my job. And without me, you don't get to listen to all the Christmas music that's playing right now. You don't get to listen to your Taylor Swift record because there's 50 motherfuckers that made that one song that you love, and they all got paid to do their job. Yeah. And that's the idea, is like looking at what we do as a valuable thing, because it is. Without us, music doesn't happen.
And it's hard for up and coming artists, engineers to really, okay, I'm gonna position myself and I'm not gonna do it for free. But once it comes up, you gotta be strong and say no. You gotta learn how to say no.
No is probably the best word I ever learned how to use, because yes, you're going to have to do certain things for free. You're going to have to do certain things. How we doing? We're doing okay?
No, I'm just checking if it's recording because I'm kind of traumatized.
Yeah, no, we're good. I think we're good.
Okay.
I think we're good. Yeah. What was I saying? You are going to have to do things for free, but they should be things that you want to do. You should do I still will do stuff for free, kind of. We'll get to that in a minute, but
call him.
but but it has to be something that I really like. It has to be an artist that I really believe in, and I really like the music, and it reminds me of why I even started doing the thing, because it's fun, because I enjoy it, But then I'll also maybe split the publishing on the back end, so in case anything does happen, I get paid later. But the point is, though, it's like you are going to have to do stuff, and you should, in the beginning, definitely choose things that make you excited. And don't worry about the money, because that will come later. But then when people start coming and asking you to do stuff, you have to remember one thing, right? Why are they asking you to do it and not doing it themselves?
Because you know how to do it. They don't.
They didn't take the time or the money to learn how to do it themselves, but they expect you to do it for free. Fuck you. No, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's not. And that right there, you should realize that, oh shit, if someone's asking me to do something, it's because they didn't take the time, they didn't take the energy or the effort to learn how to do the thing that I can do. So therefore, I'm actually the valuable one here, and I get to make the decision on whether or not I do this or not. And then you get, and once you realize that the leverage is in your favor on that stuff, you can then feel more confident about, well, you know what, I need X, Y, or Z to do it, or I can't do it. And what are they going to do? They'll go try to find someone else that does it for free? Fine. Whatever. Let them do it.
Yeah.
And then they're going to come back to you later when that person fucks it up, and then have to actually pay you to do it. And then, and that just seems to be always the case.
You can, it's hard, and I say from experience as an up-and-coming guy, it's hard to let a job go away.
It is.
It's something that you wanted to do, but the rate's not fair. People, they're not valuing you as they should, so you say no, and it's hard to.
It's really hard to, and it was hard for me, especially when I moved out here, and then after I worked with that guy, I was just saying yes to every gig that came along, because I was I need to get out there. I need to get my face in front of people, and people need to know that I exist. So I would do a gig for free. I would do a gig for gas money. I'd do a gig. If it was a $50 gig, I'd do it. It was a free gig, I'd do it. It was a $500 gig, I'd do it. I would just do whatever gig came along. I was yeah, I'll do it. I was a gig whore. I was just whatever it is, I'll do it. Mm-hmm. And what ended up happening with that was, because I was doing so many gigs kind of for free and for very cheap, people associated me with that. People would call me because they would expect me to do.
You become the cheap guy.
I was the cheap guy or the free guy, and then I was wait, I don't like being this. And so it was that moment I told you, sitting on my buddy's couch, where I went, whoa, wait a minute, this is what's fucking me up. You know, I need to like draw a line in the sand and be like, and the minute I started saying no, it was so funny. All the people that wanted me to do free shit, they were pissed off at me, and they're like, why do you mean no? I'm like, can't do it. I need this to do it. They'd be like, fine. And then they all disappeared. But then like the 10% that stuck around when I said, no, I need this. And they were like, oh yeah, well, why didn't you ever ask for it? I'm like, oh, that's right. I never fucking asked. Jesus. It was realizing like I never said what I wanted. So I was like, well, this is what I want. And they were like, cool, here you go. I was like, oh shit. So like drawing a line and having some kind of conviction of where you stand as far as like what you're worth. If you don't do that, no one's going to do that for you. If you don't tell people what you're worth, they're going to always undervalue you. So you always got to kind of draw that line, Otherwise, they will try to take advantage. They will try to continue. And then you will be in this perpetual cycle of gigs for experience and exposure.
Because you are your biggest, not the biggest, like the only seller of yourself.
Unless you got a manager. But
of course,
but no, you are.
You can't expect clients to be like, oh, he's really good, I'm going to pay him extra.
That very rarely happens. Maybe that's happened once or twice when someone's been really happy with something they've done. But no, given the option, if they would pay you less or pay you more, they'll always pay you less, because again, we were talking about earlier today, it's like some people come along and, and they just think that, I forget what it was. It was something Eric and I were talking about in line. What was it? It was really good, and I was trying to remember it. Oh no, that's a whole other thing. Well, I'll get to that. I got 3 new things to talk about, with you that are new since class started. But just the idea that people are always going to try to pay you less, and if you let them, then you get in that kind of cycle of it, and a good rule of thumb would be like, if nobody's getting paid on the gig, then do the gig for free. But if somebody's getting paid on the gig, you should probably be getting paid on the gig. If there's money for them, there should be money for you. That's really kind of the way you should look at it. No matter what it is, whether it's playing a wedding or doing a record or doing a session or doing a music for a short film or whatever. Like if someone's getting paid, you should probably be getting paid too. If everyone's doing it for free, then you can choose to do it for free. Kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah, it's so great talking to you, but because every time I hear you talk and I get things in my head like these little nuggets of information like don't do it for free unless you want to. Like value yourself the way you want people to value you.
Yeah.
So I would like you to like think if you can give knowledge to people in like you have like 1 minute to say something, and you're talking to the camera and there's a lot of people on the other end, like aspiring engineers, musicians, like things that you take from your life that you think are like, please know this, please keep this in your head so you don't get fucked up.
I think the best thing to know would be that you have to teach people how you want to be treated. If you just let them come up with their own ideas about how they're always going to treat you worse than you want them to.
Yeah.
So it's like the thing I was saying earlier to you when we were having lunch about you got to kind of bat people on the nose when you first meet them. Be like, hey, this is me. Bah, this is what I want. This is who I am. And they'll either be cool with it or not. And if they're not, chances are you probably don't want to work with them anyways. It's you find out right away. You set up the parameters like right away with someone, and you learn real fast what kind of person they are. Are they the type of person that are going to take care of you and treat you the way you need to be treated, or are they someone that's trying to use and abuse you? And it's like this in relationships too, with dating and whatever too. It's like if you don't handle the shit right out the gate, and go, this is what I need, this is how I work, this is how I operate, and they're not cool with it, then chances are they're probably not the person to work with. Yeah. And it is hard to watch a gig, to say no to a gig. Like I was saying no to gigs, like when I started to, oh God, I was freaking out because I was like, I had no money. I was broke. I was living on my friend's couch at the time going, no, I can't do that gig. What the hell's wrong with me? But I knew that if I would never get out of that cycle of free stuff and being the free guy unless I took a stand and said, no, guys, this is what I need. And once I did that, my whole life flipped around.
And I remember you saying about a book that your mama gave you.
Yeah, there's a book somewhere around here. It was a book called about goal setting called Infinite Possibilities by a guy named Mike Dooley. And what I had realized was I had set the wrong goal. Like for my entire life up to that point, I had set the wrong, because goals, you know, are things we set for ourselves to, like, I want to go from here to here, right? But you have to be really careful about the goals you set, because, you know, it's like careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. Mm-hmm. And my goal that I had set, that I had just subconsciously been following up until that point in my life was, you know, when I told my mom when I was younger, like, I'll just be happy if I could survive doing music, right? And 15 years later, I was still just surviving. And it's like, oh shit.
Choice of words.
The words I was telling myself, you know, to line up with survive. I was like, oh fuck. Like, that's not a good word. Mm-hmm. So I realized reading that Mike Dooley book, he was like, you got to be careful about the words you use to describe what you want. You have to be very specific. And so, because your brain, you know, our brains are problem solvers. And when we say, hey, brain, this is what I want to be doing, your brain goes, all right, well, let's figure it out. And if you tell your brain something that with the wrong words, it's going to figure out how to do it, but it might be, you realize it's the wrong thing. And that's really what happened to me, is I was operating from this survival mentality my entire career up to that point, where I was just like, I'll just do it as long as I get by doing it, which is totally the wrong thing. And when I switched that to being like, I want to thrive, I want to make good money doing this, I want to have a good life, I want to, you know, make a good living, I don't want to drive a shitty car anymore. It's like, you know, and I know it sounds materialistic, but it's just still, it's like, I mean, you know, and I have some students like, oh, well, it's art, it's about the art, not the money. And it's like, okay, well, don't you want to have a place that doesn't suck to go home to? Don't you want a car that drives nice and doesn't break down every day? I mean, those things require money.
Yeah.
And you know, that's how I say quality of life, you know, but yeah, it was that whole setting the wrong goal for myself was, you know, using that survival mindset. And then once I switched it to a thriving mindset, and that's when I started saying no. That's when I was like, you guys aren't valuing how valuable I am, so no, I can't do this anymore. And just everything shifted around. Yeah. You know, it was like turning on the lights and watching the roaches just scatter. Like, as soon as I turned on the lights, all the people that were worthless to me just disappeared. Yeah. But the people that were worthy and appreciated me stayed and paid me what I asked them to. And I made more money with just that 10% of people that stuck around than I did with the 90 that left over those years, you know? Yeah. And then from there, then again, those people beget other people that would call me, but then they knew, and like I was saying earlier, like, my phone only rings with people that have gone through like a whole list of people that have worked with me that know now, don't call Kris unless, you know, this is his day rate, this is what he charges, this is what. Mm-hmm. So they know before they even get on the phone with me what the deal is. Yeah. They know that this isn't some, you know, I mean, every now and then I do charity things, but, you know, they know for the most part that, you know, this is Kris's deal, don't mess with him, because he'll hang up on you. Mm-hmm. And I will, you know, like don't try to bullshit a bullshitter, because I will hang right up on you, you know. Yeah. But yeah, again, it's teaching people. Because, again, if we leave it up to other people to assign value to us, they're always going to undervalue us. So we have to show people, like, no, this is what I'm worth, okay? And you're going to either be okay with that or you're not. And if you're not, that's cool. Get out of the way. The next person might be, you know? And that's really the way you got to look at it, you know?
Yeah. That personal success and happiness starts inside.
With you, yeah.
With the wording, like surviving.
Do you want to survive or do you want to thrive?
Yeah.
You know, like, and so while it sounds noble to survive as a musician, I'll tell you right now, being a starving artist sucks. It's not fun. It's not noble. I mean, I used to make pots of rice and Polish sausage for weeks on end, because it was all I could afford, you know, to live in Hollywood and survive as a musician. You know, it was awful. Mm-hmm. You know, it was awful. But
there's nothing romantic about it.
There's nothing romantic about it. No, it's been over romanticized. It's nothing sexy about being a starving artist. Trust me. Yeah. You know, but what's sexy is, you know, knowing what you're worth and getting people to see that too, and to value you as you see yourself. You know, and those that don't, fuck them.
There's always people, like you said, the good people are going to stay.
They're always the good people, and there are lots of good people, and they will always recognize the value.
Yeah. And if you are a good person, you're going to attract other good people.
You will. And again, that's the whole vetting process is like when you are strong in your convictions about who you are and what you want and your values and things like that, you tend to again shine a light and scare away the kind of the shady people, and they don't want to deal with you because you know who you are, and they can't manipulate you anymore. And and that, because there's a lot of that, especially in this town. There's a lot of manipulation going on, and a lot of hanging on your hopes and dreams, like, hey man, if you do this, and oh man, so and so's going to be there and it's going to do this, it's going to be great, but you need to do this for me.
And you do it once, and then once you realize you
get in the loop, and then and it's hard to get out of. So again, the good people will show up, and the good people will be there. And they will always, and again, you got to stay true to you too with what you do. And you don't bullshit yourself first and foremost. Be honest. If you know that you're weak on some things, get better at those things. If promote your strengths, work on your weaknesses. I mean, I still do. Every day, I try every day to learn something new if I can, whether that's playing my instrument or doing something here with the technology or whatever.
Never stop being a student, right?
No. I mean if you look, I got books over there. I got I'm signed up on all these tutorial websites just cause there's always something I can learn, and something I can, again, to increase my value, to increase what I'm worth and what I can bring to the table and offer people, because that's really what it is. So I'm constantly trying to stay vigilant about learning the new technology, learning new things, and just staying current on what's going on. Like, how do you make an 808? Well, okay, this is how you make an 808. Like whatever's happening on the radio, like I learned how to do it,
Yes.
Because you never know who's going to ask for it.
That's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Man, talking to you is always a freaking pleasure. I'm going to ask you top 5 things, because you're a session player.
Sure.
Amazing session player. Just so we can finish it off with a different subject.
Mm-hmm.
Top 5 things new session players should know and always keep in mind. Then it doesn't need to be 5.
Okay. Number 1, be cool.
Don't be an asshole.
Yeah, don't be an asshole. No matter how good you are at your instrument, don't be a dick. You won't come back, probably. You might be working for a dick, but that's different, but you be cool and be open, be open. 2, don't rely on charts. Your ears are everything as a session player. You have to be able to sit down, listen to something once, and make something happen with it, like if you got to jot out the chord changes or something, because chances are they haven't written them out for you. So, a lot of the hip hop sessions I did, and even in those hip hop sessions too, where like, this is back in the days when everyone was using MPCs, they would like speed up or slow down so the tuning would be in between keys. So I would have to pull out a tuner and recalibrate it to whatever the key, the thing. And so that's again, 2 would be your ear, 3, make sure your if you're playing, if it's guitar players especially, make sure your instruments are intonated and in tune and play
ready to go.
You're ready to go. Although shit can happen and things can get knocked out, but learn how to adapt in those situations. Like, tune the guitar down here, it's out of tune up here. Retune it if you're playing up here. Retune it up here, it's out of tune. You got to just go on the fly with that kind of stuff. Know your gear and know how to interpret and communicate with someone who maybe might not be as versed as a musician as you are. The guy I used to work for, he used to yell at me and say, "Make it hot, make that guitar hot."
What is that?
I don't know. I didn't know. So I didn't know what hot meant. And so like I would, I had a rack of stuff and be like, I just try things and be like, is this hot? Is this? Found out hot meant a dotted eighth note delay like the Edge from U2, which I had on my Eventide. And I had a little tempo, on my Eventide. I could just tap it. That was hot. So I learned what hot meant, right? Now he could have just said, "Hey, give me that Edge sound," and I'd have been like, "Oh, daughter, don't delay," But he, sometimes the communication breaks down, and sometimes, and this is true with. I mean, if you're on a session, if you're doing a film score, if you're doing, commercial work, whatever, when you're dealing with people that are out, maybe not as musical as you are, they don't speak in quarter notes and eighth notes and major minor chords. They
say like colors.
They say it's blue or it's hot or make it green, and you're gonna have to try to understand and interpret very quickly what it is that they're talking about. And I learned again, hot. The code for hot was dotted eighth note delay. So anytime he said make that guitar hot, so what I did, But know your gear well enough that you can then also, you can create all sorts of palettes of sounds that people need. I mean, I did a lot of stuff. I have my EBO here. I did a lot of crazy reverse guitar EBO things that were all like almost like synth pads, but like super cool weird sound. Like
Be prepared
to like do some weird shit, But also, make sure that again your tone is good, your feel and your timing have to be impeccable. Learn how to double yourself. Like learn how to double yourself. Like practice doubling yourself. That's gonna take you a long. I got a lot of work because I was really good at double tracking myself. Like on an acoustic guitar, I could play the part twice, and you could spread it out stereo, and it sounded perfect. Like cool. that was one of my claims to fame. I was really good at double tracking. But I would say, So don't be a dick, obviously. Trust your ears because they're everything. Learn your gear. Learn how to communicate with potential people who aren't actual musicians, or don't speak with you. Like learn the codes and what those means, and don't get frustrated either when they start saying shit like that. Just be like, see if you can. What do you mean? Like, give me an example. What's a hot guitar? What's a hot guitar? Reference me. Like U2. Got it. Like delay, like something. Things like that. And then what was the last one I said? The fifth thing. Must have been a lie.
I think that's it. It was 4.
Was it just 4?
4 is good.
I don't have a fifth thing. Do I have a fifth thing?
Oh
yeah, the intonation stuff. Make sure your guitars and stuff are all ready. Yeah.
Awesome.
But I mean, that's kind of stuff. But I mean, but be cool. Don't sweat it. Especially when you do like a bigger session. That first session I did with Enrique was maybe it was the second one where I was recording acoustic guitar. So I was in the booth, with the headphones and really expensive mic in front of me, and I'm all like deer in the headlights, and I could see everybody through the glass talking and laughing, and I'm by myself in this quiet ass room, and I play and stop. And I see people like look at each other, talk, laugh, look at me, look back, laugh, like
so uncomfortable.
So are they laughing at me? And it was one of those things where I had to just mentally kind of like. Because once the record light goes on, and this is true with anyone when they're tracking something, they get like, oh, I must do everything correctly and play everything right and not mess things up. That's the first, as a session musician, that's the first way you're not going to get called back. Yeah, you got to be in time and in tune and all that stuff, but you also got to play something that's cool. You got to play something that's vibey, and just and trust your instincts from playing. That just play something.
Trust that what you do is good.
Yeah, trust that you're there because you're good at what you do, and don't be so freaked out when the record
like what you're playing.
Yeah, and enjoy it. Yeah, like have fun. Be like, oh, that fucking part's cool. Yeah. And get into it because that translates through a record.
Because if you're into it, that means probably someone's gonna be into it as well.
I mean, if I just sat here, like if I sat and just went. Let's see if I can do this. If I just did this, I just went. That's fucking lame, Put something in. You can play the part as is, or you can like give it something, and that's what you're there to do, is to kind of pep it up a bit, because we can program quantize shit, you know. But like a lot of times, guitar players, especially, we get called in to like add this kind of human-y thing to like these program tracks, and so you know, so have fun with it. You know, that's, I guess that would be number 5 or 6. I don't know. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Chris, thanks so much.
Yeah, man.
It was
absolutely
great.
Always hey,
great.
Should I plug my book?
Yeah, please. Yeah, he's got a book coming out.
So I wrote
a
book about all this stuff.
Yes.
It's coming out in May. It's called, wait, what's it called? They named it for me. Like they wouldn't. I wanted to call it shit they didn't teach me in music school, but they didn't like that title. They named it the Working Musician's Handbook, a guide for professional success is what it's called.
Awesome.
But it's from Rowan and Littlefield. It will be coming out in May. But it covers.
If you have the cover, send it to me. I'm gonna put it right here.
I will send the cover once I get a. Again, I couldn't pick the cover either, but it's funny. It was like what I used to tell my artists with the labels. And be like, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. In the back, why can't I do that? I'm the artist, and now I'm like, well, I wrote the book. Why can't I do this? And they're like, shut up. So yeah, but yeah. So
yeah, it's got a book. No social media, so yeah.
I have a LinkedIn.
If you wanna find Kris, LinkedIn, Kris Hawkins. And,
yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, as I said, pleasure. It's like coming full circle talking to you once again after 2 years, I think. And yeah, thank you so much for this. Pleasure. Everyone have a good one. Do the like, subscribe, all that jive that everybody loves. Yeah, thank you.